Thank you for joining us for tonight's telephone town hall with Congressman Mike Haridopolos. My name is Kaylee, and I will be your moderator this evening. If you'd like to ask a question, just press *3 on your phone at any time, and you'll be added to the queue. If you'd like to subscribe to Rep. Haridopolos' newsletter, press *6. Here's how tonight will work. The Congressman will start with a brief update, and then we'll open it up for your questions live on the call. You will have up to 1 minute to ask your question. We will do our best to get to as many questions as possible. Now, without further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce your Congressman, Mike Haridopolos. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you, Kaylee, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our 6th Town Hall meeting. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to honor the life of our prior Congressman, Bill Posey, who sadly passed away on May 9. As many of you know, Bill was a dedicated public servant for over 3 decades. He served in local government, the Florida legislature, and then represented our community in Congress for more than 15 years. Throughout his career, he was a strong advocate for our veterans, our space program, our seniors, and the hardworking families who call our community home. Beyond his accomplishments, Bill was a true gentleman. He was always willing to listen, and whether you agree with him or not, you knew he cared deeply about our community and the people he represented. His impact in our community will be felt for generations. Our thoughts and prayers will remain with Bill, his wife Katie, and his family. And for those who want to know, his memorial service will be held on Saturday, June 13, at Holy Trinity Upper School, which is located at Pineda and Wickham Road at 10 a.m., as we come together to remember a true American patriot and a person I was proud to call a close friend. I also want to acknowledge the recent explosion of Blue Origin rocket at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. First and foremost, I am grateful there are no injuries. I'm also thankful for Space Coast first responders, engineers, and launch crews who acted quickly. Since that happened, I have been in constant contact with NASA Administrator Jydrak Isaacman, local Space Force officials, Blue Origin leadership since the incident occurred. While investigations on what caused the explosion will continue, we will remain committed to supporting the workers and companies that make our region the center of America's space program. In April, we all watched as Artemis II carried 4 astronauts around the moon for the first time in generations and further from Earth than ever. This mission is not just one launch, but part of a broader effort involving multiple launches and systems coming together to support deep space exploration. At the same time, space activity on our Space Coast has continued at a record pace, with more launches than ever before from both NASA and private companies. This increased launch activity reflects how busy and important our region has become to the future of spaceflight. In Congress, and as chairman of the Space Subcommittee, I work closely with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to advance bipartisan space legislation that strengthens safety, supports NASA's Artemis program, and ensures the United States remains #1 in space exploration. Also, on a lighter note, we've had some great sports victories, and you can read all about these in the Florida Today as our high school students really make our proud, especially recently in football and baseball. And on a personal note, I'd like to congratulate my wife, Dr. Stephanie Haridopolos, for her recent promotion and is now Acting Surgeon General of the United States. As you can imagine, myself and our kids are so proud of her and all the work she's done throughout her career and now serving our nation in an important role. So let me tell you about what's going on in our office and what we're currently working on. So far this year, we've helped to return more than $5.7 million to constituents who had issues with the federal government. And all totaled, we handled over 3,300 cases and returned over $18 million. This is all focused on making sure that you deserve. So if you're a veteran trying to get benefits you've earned, contact us. If you're dealing with a Social Security issue, contact us. If you're dealing with a passport issue, contact us. Or you're a family member trying to help your senior parents, contact us. My team works every day to cut through the red tape so you can get the benefits you have earned. And that's real money going back into the pockets of Florida families right in our community. We've also worked with local communities, schools, first responders, and organizations throughout our district to bring federal resources back home. To date, more than $234 million in federal grants have been awarded throughout the 8th Congressional District. That means more roads, money for public safety, research, workforce training, and economic development projects. In addition, I've secured over $15.5 million in federal funding to clean up our Indian River Lagoon, such a vital part of our community. And in fact, last week I announced over $20 million in federal investment at Port Canaveral to rehabilitate the cargo berths that provide fuel that keeps Central Florida moving. In simple terms, this project upgrades the life of our port and makes sure that facilities like the Orlando International Airport and our gas stations have the fuel they need to keep Florida moving. At the same time, we're focused on bigger issues facing our economy. One of the reasons I ran for office is because I was frustrated with Washington, D.C. They simply weren't coming up with common sense solutions. We wanted a more secure border, a stronger economy, and to do everything we can to drive down the high inflation rates. And that means that we need to back up, most recently, the idea of what we call Reconciliation 2.0. The last part of our budget that we need to pass would fully fund Homeland Security. That means U.S. border protection, and that also means support for the workers who are a part of immigration and customs enforcement, known as ICE. These men and women work hard to make sure that they arrest criminals who come into our country, not just illegally, but sadly, once here, have committed murder, rape, child molestation, major drug offenses, etc., and we need to keep our communities safe. Those are the priorities I am fighting for every single day in Congress. And because we live in a very dangerous world, we must support our military, stand with our allies, and make sure our nation remains secure. And of course, I remain focused on making sure that Florida continues to lead the nation in space, job innovation, job creation, and economic growth. The future of the Space Coast is incredibly bright, and I want to make sure we're doing something every day so we can keep that momentum going. More importantly, as I close, tonight is your opportunity to be heard. I want to know what's on your mind. I want to hear from your questions, the concerns that you have, so I can take those fights with me in Washington. Thank you again for taking the time to join us tonight and allowing me the honor to serve as your congressman. And with that, we'll spend the remainder of our time together taking your questions, making sure that you know how I stand on the issues and, of course, other important issues.
Thank you, Congressman. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just press *3 on your phone at any time and you'll be added to the queue. If you'd like to subscribe to Rep. Haridopolos' weekly newsletter, press *6. Our first question is going to be from Maria Gonzalez in Brevard County. Maria, you are live with the Congressman.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. So I'm hearing a lot of different things about the border, and it feels like there's not a clear fix in sight. What's actually being done right now to secure the border and make sure that things are under control?
Well, Maria, that's a very fair question. And as you know, it's probably the biggest issue of the 2024 election. Sadly, over the previous 4 years, around 10 million people entered our nation illegally. And as these people made their way across the country, sadly, they committed many crimes. And just to kind of give affirmation of the unfortunate threat, there's actually a website called WOW, like worst of the worst, .dhs.gov, that outlines the people who have been arrested for murder, rape, child molestation, and other sexual crimes, as well as drug offenses. Sadly, we need ICE agents to make sure these people are rounded up, especially considering about 40% of the population lives in what are called sanctuary cities, meaning local law enforcement will not do its part to enforce some of these laws. And we've seen tragedies in states like Minnesota because of this situation. So what we have done since I've been in Congress is that we have pretty much secured the border, meaning there are no major border incursions, and we are going after those 10 million people who broke the law, not only coming here, but more importantly, when they came here, broke those serious offenses I talked about earlier. At this point, around 2 to 2.5 million of that 10 million have now either left the country or forcibly removed from the country because we are finally enforcing immigration laws. We're continuing to build our fences and walls to keep people out who should not be here, let alone those who have cut in line in front. But we are going to continue to be vigilant and picking the worst of the worst, going after those folks who have committed heinous crimes against so many of our citizens. And we think it's just common sense. And that's not even to mention the financial costs that came with the 10 million people who entered the country. That meant giving them free housing, food, cell phones, even cash cards in places. I find that unacceptable because, again, so many Americans are working hard to make ends meet. It doesn't make sense to me that you would give money to a person who's come here illegally and give them more benefits than people who actually are American citizens. We'll continue this fight to go after the worst of the worst, and we're going to continue also to keep America open to people who want to play by the rules. Because whether people know it or not, over 1 million people enter this country legally every year because they have played by the rules and they want to come to America to truly contribute and not cut in line. So thanks for your question, Maria, and we'll look forward to your next question.
Our next question is going to be from Kevin in Satellite Beach. Kevin, you are live with the Congressman.
Hello, Congressman. Hello, Congressman Haridopolos. My question's about stock trading.
Okay. About stock trading, well, here's my take on stock trading. I made a pledge before I got elected to say that I will not trade stocks. This job is hard enough without me trying to figure out the stock market or some of the concerns that people legitimately have, that people are getting some type of special information. I made it a pledge never to trade stocks, and I have not traded stocks. In fact, I'm one of the main sponsors to end stock trading here in the United States Congress. I think that we should focus on our job. We have so many challenges in our country, and so I do not trade stocks at all. And again, I am a prime sponsor to get legislation passed so that we no longer do that in the United States Congress. And let me add one more thing that's important to me is that we know that there was a recent government shutdown, and during that shutdown, whether it be Republicans' fault or Democrats' fault, I would simply say this. I didn't take my pay during that time period. If people who are on the front lines, whether it be TSA workers or otherwise, and they're working to protect the homeland, I don't think I should be paid until we, the politicians, solve the problem and get the government back open. And so that's something I've also taken as a pledge. The only way you should really lead in many cases, you can't just talk, you need to act. And that's why I don't trade stocks and I don't take my pay when the government is shut down. Thank you for your question, Kevin.
Oh, thank you.
Our next question is from Charlie from Vieira. Charlie, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi. My question is about gas prices. Obviously, over $4 here in Vieira. My question is just how are we going to get these down, and what congressmen like yourself are doing about this situation?
Well, Charlie, your point is well taken, and this has probably been the most frustrating part of the job since I entered the Congress last January. As you know, throughout 2025, we were bringing prices down because we are extending oil leases. We are creating new opportunities within America. We're making it now even more prevalent where you can actually create more ethanol. We were allowing for fracking, which had been denied for years. we're opening up, again, new opportunities. And the truth is we're going to open up new opportunities, but not here in Florida. We're not going to drill off our coast. There are other parts of the country that want to do this. But we are really trying to do everything we can to make oil production stronger. And in fact, we're at record levels today. Almost 14 million barrels a day are created in the United States. And as you probably know, Venezuela is going to be coming online stronger. And we're finally building refineries for the first time since the 1970s in places like Brownsville, Texas, and extending other refineries in places in Louisiana and Texas. Though sadly, in more, let's just say, blue states like California, they're actually closing refineries. So we're doing all we can there. In contrast, as you recall, back in 2022, we had gas prices even higher, and they're also taking from the strategic oil reserve. They took about 40% from the strategic oil reserve. We don't think that is a smart decision. And as you can also imagine, some of the Green New Deal programs they spent money on, we felt were not the right thing to do. So what we have basically invested in is this basic opportunity. We are going to produce more and more supply. We want to be less reliant on the Middle East, and we want our nation to become more energy independent. And as I think we all recognize now, the reason why gas prices are up is because of the conflict in Iran. And I'll get into the Iran question, I'm sure later, sir, someone will ask me about that. But we've been in conflict with this country since 1979. They've killed thousands of Americans since that time period. And to show their brutality, they've killed upwards of now 60,000 of their own citizens. And they're so despised because of their evil behavior in trying to acquire a nuclear weapon that their own neighbors, who in some religious aspects are aligned with them, have turned and support now the United States and Israel because of their, let's just say, evil activities. So these are very challenging times. What we're doing is expanding the opportunities in America. That's very much in contrast to what was happening in the previous administration. And again, just to reiterate, more refineries, more fracking, more oil leases being let out, and bringing more oil online from places like Venezuela and Brazil. We think the best way to solve the problem is to truly create more energy here in America so that we're more energy independent. And I think as we're creating more oil, that will eventually bring down prices once this conflict in Iran ends. And in the long term, in my opinion at least, once this conflict in Iran ends, you'll see the gas prices go back to where we were throughout 2025, where we're finally seeing gas price relief, unlike what had happened in the previous 4 years. Thanks for your question, Charlie and Vera.
As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just press *3 on your phone at any time, and you'll be added to the queue. If you'd like to subscribe to Rep. Haridopolos' newsletter, press *6. Our next question is going to be from Mark in Palm Bay. Mark, you are live with the Congressman.
Good evening, Congressman. Good evening, Congressman. My question is, with the situation in the Middle East feeling like one step forward, 2 steps back, what concrete steps is Congress actually taking to prevent this from escalating into another prolonged war as we saw in Afghanistan?
Well, Mark, this is a great frustration, and we saw the failure in Afghanistan where we lost over $90 billion worth of military equipment. Of course, a lot of American lives were lost in the conflict, also, of course, in the withdrawal as well. That said, on the Iran front, I think we need to have peace through strength. I am so glad to see that we have an alliance in that region. All of Iran's neighbors are siding with us because of the behavior I just mentioned in the previous call. And here's the other thing that I think Marco Rubio described even better than myself. What Iran was attempting to do was to create such a strong conventional force with the drones and ballistic missiles we've seen being fired from their region that we could never destroy their nuclear facilities. They'd eventually get a nuclear bomb, and you can only imagine how they would blackmail the rest of the world as they are by trying to cut off the Strait of Hormuz at this time. And to give you an idea just how deceptive, or just put it simply, they're liars, is the fact that they have a ballistic missile despite what they had been saying for years. If you remember back in March, they actually fired one of these ballistic missiles at our #1 base in the Indian Ocean called Diego Garcia, which is 2,500 miles away. meaning if they were able to acquire a nuclear weapon, they could hit cities like Athens, Rome, Paris, Berlin, Vienna with one of these ballistic missiles. So we made the challenging choice because, the president knew that if he did this, gas prices would go up. But he felt that the safety of the world depended on and making sure that Iran never got a nuclear weapon. And look, President Obama tried to work it out in a different method. He gave away a lot of resources and money to Iran, even tried to let them back into the international economic community. And what did they do? In the end, they thumbed their nose at us once again, and they continued to fund terrorist activities. And the groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and all these other terrorist groups are funded by the Iranians. The president finally did what every president since 1979 has talked about. He said, enough of this. We need to eliminate the threat. And like you, Mark, I pray that we can handle and get a deal that finally has some logic in Iran. These people are madmen, and they're killing their own citizens. You can only imagine what they'd be willing to do to us if they're killing their own. So we are going to have, hopefully, this alliance strong enough where the Iranians eventually come to the table. And all we ask them is a simple request. Do not create a nuclear weapon. Do not block one of the vital sea lanes of the world, that being, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. And you will be led back into the nation, one of the nations of the world. But until then, they are a real threat, as they proved with this missile that can fire 2,500 miles. And on a personal note, my son's in the United States Air Force. I have a personal that you can't get any more personal than that. We believe strong in this country. We believe in the idea of peace, but we believe in the idea of peace of strength. Again, President Obama tried his best to do it another way. Sadly, it did not work. And it seems like the Iranian leaders, not the people, but the leaders of Iran, only understand force. And hopefully they'll eventually come to the bargaining table and simply give up their idea of having nuclear weapons, because it's untenable in this new world. So thanks again, Mark, for your question. I hope I answered that in a very thorough way.
Our next question is going to be from George in Cape Canaveral. George, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Congressman. A little closer to home.
Hey, how are you, George?
I'm doing good. Thank you. A little closer to home, you briefly touched on the Blue Origin explosion at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What oversight's being done by NASA to keep residents of this area safe and their property safe?
Well, George, it was absolutely shocking. I literally got off the plane that night, and as soon as I got off the plane, my phone got one message after another. Immediately, people sent over the horrific images of the explosion, and I immediately got on the phone with the head of NASA. His name is Jared Isaacman, and we spoke that night on and off until 12:20 in the morning. And I was able to convey with the public exactly what happened as soon as possible. I think that's one of the roles I have as congressman, especially being the chairman of the committee, let alone this happening in our district. Remember, in my opinion, George, the first priority for NASA is safety first. We respect the love of life, and we're just so grateful no one was injured in this explosion. And as you probably heard, I talked to Colonel Chapman, who actually runs the Space Force base that night as well. And in the morning, they actually cleaned up much of the debris that morning. And my son, who's an EOD tech out in California in the Air Force, the local EOD cleaned up that site. And I think people are starting to see images today. And the amazing resiliency of our community is the fact that SpaceX launched the following day, and then the next night ULA launched. So we are continuing our activities there. And finally, George, to answer your question, I've been in constant contact with Blue Origin. They will be coming to testify to tell us exactly what happened. They are working closely with NASA, led by Jared Isaacman, to find out what happened, and they have agreed to share the information with all the new space companies that are coming online here in Brevard County. I think it's imperative that we always think safety first. We need to understand, was this some kind of anomaly, or there's something systemic that we need to work out? And as far as the long-term issue, that being getting back to the moon, remember, Blue Origin had a vital role to play. They were the ones who were providing one of the landers, SpaceX being the other. And so we're working closely with them so we can figure out how we can still use the New Glenn rocket that would, of course, propel the lander up and eventually land on the moon. So it's something we're working in concert with. But space is our future. We're going to continue this. We know the challenges you've seen through the Mercury, Apollo, Shuttle, and, of course, now the Artemis programs. But I am closely monitoring this, but I'm purposely staying out of the politics. This is something for engineers. This is something for scientists and our leadership to figure out, and then we can ask the good questions. We're just so grateful, again, that no one was injured. So, George, thanks for your question, and we're just so glad everyone's safe.
As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just press *3 on your phone at any time, and you'll be added to the queue. If you'd like to subscribe to Rep. Haridopolos' newsletter, press *6. Our next question is coming from Fran in Cocoa Beach. Fran, you are live with the Congressman.
Good evening. I saw recently you visited Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High. What did you hear while you were there? And are there issues that something that you can actually be addressed at the federal level?
Well, Fran, thanks for your question. You know, I think a lot of people know I used to teach at the college level, something I take great pride in. I believe the ultimate civil right is a fantastic public education. I'm a product of the public schools. And what I have done consistently, not just, of course, now as congressman, but before that, when I was in the State House and State Senate, I would always go out and visit the schools, talk to students directly, talk about the power of education, and meet with teachers and principals in the different schools, find out what we can be doing better. And one of the real exciting things that's happening at, especially our high school level, is that we are really training for the future. You know, not everyone wants to go off to college. A lot of people want to go right into the workforce. And so I visited Space Coast Senior High School. We're able to get them a grant so these students can learn and get jobs at the Space Center. We did much the same at Merritt Island High School as they're learning how to fly there. Cocoa Beach High School, as you mentioned, we're working on environmental programs. At Titusville High School, Governor DeSantis and I highlighted some of the grants that have been used so that students can go right from high school with certain certifications to jobs, whether it be at Kennedy Space Center or one of the emerging space companies in our region. I think this kind of hands-on education is so important, and it's the reason why I work so closely with our school board, and I really applaud our school board because we are training for the jobs of today, and you're also seeing a lot of the private sector companies invest more in our public schools so that, again, they can get the training they need to go right into the workforce if that's where they would like to go. Because, as you know, we're not just the space industry, we're also a part of the defense network with major companies like L3 Harris and Northrop Grumman, et cetera. And so these are the vital investments we're making. I could not be happier with what our public schools are doing today. And also what's great about our school system here in Florida is that parents get have a say of where their kids go to school. Some people want their kids to be in the public school, some in public charter schools, sometimes private. But that really empowers the parent. And the leaders of the school board are now saying, we're not going to be a one-size-fits-all. We're not going to tell parents what the decision is. We're going to empower parents. And one of the ways you can do that is when you have a great course offering like we've been doing at the different schools, and you're seeing the dividends pay off because our test scores are higher than ever. So, Fran, thanks for your question, and I'm going to continue to go out and visit the schools. It's always fun for me to talk about what we do here in Congress and the power of education.
Our next question is going to be from Jason from Melbourne. Jason, you are live with the Congressman.
Hey, Jason.
Good evening, Congressman. This is Jason from Melbourne. Hey, it's a follow-up from your last question you got regarding all the news I've seen lately about NASA funding the next mission to the moon. Does the unfortunate Blue Origin incident change any of that?
Well, where we're at with that one is this. This is the risk that Blue Origin took on. And, they're not just dealing with Artemis. They're also dealing with, they're trying to make money launching satellites just like SpaceX is doing. But one of the real things that I'm trying to build on from what Bill Posey did prior to me is make sure that our space missions are intact. and that we can continue to grow as an economy. Those of us who lived here for a while, I've been in Brevard County since 1988, 1989, and we all saw how the economy went down after the Apollo program ended, and we had to move towards a shuttle program. Then when the shuttle program went away during President Obama, a lot of people wondered, would our economy go right straight down like after Apollo? Well, Rick Scott and I, when we were in the legislature together and worked with people like Bill Posey, we said, no, we think commercial space could really become viable, working hand in glove with NASA. And I'm proud to say that we are stronger than ever. You see all the new incredible jobs that are being created. And yes, there will be setbacks, as we saw with Blue Origin, but we are definitely moving forward. And for a lot of people who saw some headlines that we could be cutting funding with NASA, the exact opposite happened. Now, there was a call for some cuts back in January of 2025, but we in Congress stuck together. We fully funded NASA at over $24 billion, and we added almost $10 billion in what's called the Big Bill back in July. We are making a big investment in space because it's not just about exploration. It's not just about landing on the moon. It's about national security. The Chinese and the Russians do not respect us in space because they've done nefarious things, whether it be stealing or using espionage or in some cases even crashing satellites causing space debris. So we are making this big investment. I think you'll see NASA fully funded once again. And despite the setback with Blue Origin, we are still on track to get back to the moon in 2028 and build on the incredible success of the Artemis II mission back in April, where those 4 brave astronauts went further from Earth in American history. And so we could not be more proud of them. And on a personal note, being the chairman of the committee, we feel that this is a bipartisan opportunity. I work with Republicans and Democrats. In fact, I just introduced a new bill to help strengthen our space industry with a Democrat of all states from California, George Whitesides, who used to be one of the NASA leaders before he was elected to Congress. So, Jason, thanks for your question from Melbourne, and we'll continue to invest in our space future.
As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just press *3 on your phone at any time and you'll be added to the queue. If you'd like to subscribe to Rep. Haridopolos' newsletter, press *6. Our next question is going to be from Deanna from Rockledge. Deanna, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Deanna. Deanna?
Sir, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi.
I keep hearing a lot about tariffs, and honestly, I'm not sure how they're supposed to really help me. I just know a lot of things at the stores just seem more expensive. Could you possibly explain how tariffs are actually helping everyday people?
Well, it's a really tough question. This is a long-time economic argument, and President Trump, as you know, has been a believer in tariffs for years. As he says, oftentimes he feels like we're getting ripped off by other countries where they will charge us higher tariffs than we charge them. And my philosophy on this is this, to best describe it, Deanna. The only way you can have free trade is if you have fair trade, meaning it's just like anything else, everyone should be treated on a level playing field. But unfortunately, especially nations like China chose not to do this. They joined the WTO back in the year 2000. They said they would play by the rules. Sadly, they do not. They do not respect our environmental laws. They do not really have labor laws worth the darn. They also steal our technology, meaning that they basically create counterfeit goods. And so the president has been especially tough on China because of the trade deficit we have. They'll go in and dump products in our country and undercut all the things I just mentioned. And so what we have basically said with the tariffs is we're using it as a way to finally say to the rest of the world, treat us as you want to be treated. As I like to say, be a friend would like to have. And so we have worked out a multitude of agreements with so many countries because we finally said to these countries, treat us fairly. And now I must admit, I think some of the economists said that some of the tariffs could increase costs by between 0.75% and 1%. But the bottom line is that we think long term, when we're treated fairly, American products can be sold overseas and we can create a larger growing economy. And what you're also seeing because of this new policy, we're finally seeing auto jobs come back to America. The latest stat has it something like 10,000 new jobs alone to come back into the auto industry, because we are saying to countries, if you want to do business, come to America, because we also learned during the COVID years that that the supply chain, if you're reliant on it overseas, can be disrupted very quickly. God forbid another type disease or action took place like that. And so that's the policy. We believe that in time that this will create finally a level playing field, because what was happening is we were paying artificially high prices and because of these unfair trade alliances we had. And now the president, by simply getting tough, it's working. And the same thing's happening with things like NATO, where NATO is finally paying more of their share for defense. America, for too long, has been paying a disproportionate share, even when conflicts are happening, of course, in Europe. But these are the kind of things that the president has tried to do. Like you, I don't like these higher prices, but it's nothing in comparison to the 9% inflation rate just a few years ago, or the about 1.5 higher interest rates from a few years ago. And as I'll close with this, Deanna, because I think your question is a very thoughtful one. I serve on the Financial Services Committee. I'm actually what's called the whip of the committee, part of the leadership team. And I asked Chairman Powell from the Federal Reserve, and I asked him what was the number one reason for inflation. And he's not exactly President Trump's best friend, as you probably heard. And he said the number one reason for inflation was too much government spending. And as you've seen, a lot of it in fraud, et cetera. And he said that was the number one reason. That's why we cut out 1.5, not billion, but $1 trillion in excess spending, taking on fraud, waste, and abuse, as you've heard about more recently in states like California and Minnesota. Because in the end, you're paying a lot of taxes where people are stealing it outright, and that's why we need to take issues like fraud. But Deanna, good question. We think long-term tariffs will help because it'll make the American economy stronger, and more jobs will come from overseas here to America. And God forbid another pandemic breaks out, we'll be self-reliant and not have some of those shortages we saw with supply chain, et cetera. So thanks, Deanna.
Our next question is going to come from Mary from Rockledge. Mary, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary. Are you there, Mary?
This is
Is this Mary?
Yes. At first, I wanted to congratulate your lovely wife on her being appointed our Surgeon General, and I know she'll do a great job because you're doing a great job as our Congressman, and I would love to thank you so much for all your hard work. My question was, the other thing I also wanted to thank you was getting the $15 million to clean up the lagoon for the Indian River, because this is an important asset to our, natural habitat and in Vero Beach, and for all of the wonderful people that come to visit and the local people that live here. So thank you again. My question basically was the high prices with the doctors and the senior care that is not up to what it should be in the Indian River County area, and what can we do to alleviate the high cost?
Well, this is a real challenge, and you nailed it. And I think it's so important that healthcare. And first of all, thanks for your kind comments about my wife. She is the general, so she's been doing a great job. I'm so proud of her, and she is, of course, an amazing doctor in our home community, and we are proud to serve our country today, along with our son in the Air Force. Healthcare costs are something that we're looking at, and we're all hoping that Obamacare could work. It just hasn't. And it's actually caused prices to rise. And so what we are trying to do in the Congress now is to create more flexible plans instead of a one-size-fits-all solution. And we also want to create more competition with some of these hospitals that have more favorable situations. And finally, especially if you're a senior, we have really tried to put more money in your pocket, because as you know, we actually eliminated taxes on Social Security for people who earn $75,000 or less. or couples made $150,000 or less, because those hard-earned money, something you worked a lifetime for, and we think you should keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket so you can spend it for your needs as opposed to Washington making those decisions. But in general, we really pushed, and especially the House is saying we need to make healthcare more flexible. There's a very different health insurance plan for a senior citizen versus a person just starting in their working years. And we've also worked with programs like my wife got involved in with things called Healthy Kids. And that's where people who don't qualify for Medicaid can get low-cost health insurance for their kids. But flexibility is going to have to be the key. Some people think health savings accounts are better. Some people like the deluxe plans, but people should have the flexibility as opposed to the government saying you have to do it our way. Sadly, that has not reduced prices at all. In fact, Obamacare has caused more health care inflation than we've ever seen, because what happens is two things. One is it's a one-size-fits-all. It means everybody's covered for everything, and thus the risk is taken on. And the other one is you're hearing about in states like California, they're abusing the system in programs like hospice. And that's why it's so vital that guys like Dr. Oz and others at HHS, along with RFK Jr., are weeding out that fraud, because that means the dollars can go into health care as opposed to being never even used for health care because they're lying about what they said or delivered in health care services. So thank you for your question, Mary, and your kind words. We're doing everything we can to do it, and the best way to do it is not have one size government fits all, in my opinion, but flexibility to meet the need of the consumer.
Our next question is going to be from Mary from Rockledge. Mary, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Congressman. Nice to chat. My question is about fraud spam calls. I'm getting a lot of spam calls every day, and I just wonder if there's anything being done to actually stop this. There's scams attached to them, and it's a little bit unnerving to get so many.
Well, a couple things. One is Aaron Bean, as a fellow Florida congressman, is working on a bill to get stronger on this issue. It is remarkable the number of spam calls we get. Unfortunately, like with my phone, if I don't know that number, that name doesn't come up, well, I just simply don't answer. And it's frustrating because sometimes I do miss important calls, but we get so inundated with that. I think that real penalties need to come to those scammers. And I'll try to share with you, if you can send me some information with your email, I'll get you the latest language on that bill, because I think that is a real issue. We're seeing the same type of thing with identity theft. One of the things that we've been working on in the office is the idea of potentially having a one-stop shopping thing where you go to one government site where you can find out if it's fraud or not. You probably get texts like I do saying, oh, you need to pay this bill right away or you'll lose your driver's license, or you forgot to pay this toll. And you don't know. We need to have one place where people can go. I know when I talked to Sheriff Ivey in Brevard County and Sheriff Flowers in Indian River County, or Sheriff Mina in Orange County, all these folks are telling me that fraud is rampant because of this new technology that's being used. And finally, I'll just say this, Mayor, if I could. I can't believe what we're reading about in places like Minnesota, where these people were stealing money with fake education programs or food programs or health care programs. The only thing I can say in positive is because of the aggressive actions of the Trump administration and RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz, there are now prosecutions in place. They had this one program talking about feeding people in Minnesota. They arrested now 79 people, and the ringleaders are getting 15 and 20-year prison sentences because they are stealing from the American public, and that's simply unacceptable. People work too darn hard to see their money stolen like that by these gangsters in Minnesota and some of the hospice providers in California. So, and unfortunately, it's not limited to just those states, but many others, and that's why the power of technology should help us out. So, Mary, thanks for your call, and hopefully we'll get your email address, and we'll put some information out about Aaron Bean's bill to take on fraud as people use scam phone calls.
Our next question is from Alicia from Merritt Island. Alicia, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing? I'm so excited for your wife to be our new Surgeon General, and I'm very excited for the opportunity to ask my question about the Save America Act. I'm so hopeful that we have to show ID for elections because we don't want any more frauds.
Well, I'll tell you what, Alicia, it is shocking to me that there are 14 states that don't require ID. I mean, I used to teach this in elections law back at the college level when they had corrupt elections in the late 1800s, early 1900s with boss politicians where people would vote multiple times, never check ID, etc. It's unacceptable. And in the most logical way, it's only Americans should vote in American elections. As you can imagine, my last name is of Greek origin. It'd be laughable if I went to Greece right now and say, I'm here to vote. And so we want to have strong, solid elections that we can trust. And just to give a little quick history lesson, you know, back in 2000, my first time in the legislature, Bill Posey was the one who turned around our bad election system. He was the one they put in charge, and we've now become the model for the nation, where we can find out our election results in minutes, when sometimes it takes other states weeks to make the decision. So with that in mind, Save America Act is the most common sense thing in the world. It says basically only Americans can vote in American elections. You've got to show your ID. There have been some concerns about married women with their names. I went and talked to our supervisor elections, and they showed me how easy it is for you to go out and change your voter ID and to verify that you are who you say you are, and at the very least you'll get a provisional ballot that can be used. So these are the common sense things that people need to do, because let's remember back in 2016, Democrats said it was somehow the Russian influence in the election. 2020, even more controversy. Now in 2024, maybe more and more things came out. Let's take away some of this garbage. Let's have some common sense. And it's the reason why over 75% of the public agree that voter ID should be there and that only Americans should vote in American elections. It's the most common sense thing of all time. I can't believe that people would hide away from this issue. In my opinion, I'll just be blunt about it. The only people who don't want voter ID are people who are okay with fraud, and that's unacceptable to me. And considering you have to use an ID to get in an airplane, heck, to buy a beer, how could you not have an identification if you're an American citizen? It's a little ridiculous, the other side's argument, but you know, welcome to politics in 2026.
Our next question is going to come from Kathy in Vero Beach. Kathy, you are live with the Congressman.
Good evening, Congressman. I want to just say that there's many of us in Indian River County and Vero Beach that are saddened that we've been carved out of your congressional district. We want to just acknowledge that you have been a blessing and your engagement has been just amazing, especially when it comes to supporting local governments, the environment, and the services that are provided by the nonprofits. My question is, we're watching the property tax debate now, and there's a lot of discussion about property tax and extra dollars floating around, which is really not true when it comes to providing for environmental issues like the Indian River Lagoon, and I know you're very familiar with that, but I also would like to get your perspective on aging infrastructure because it seems to be left out of the discussion.
Well, it's absolutely vital that we have the best. I mean, as you know, some of the problems we've experienced with the lagoon is the leaching of the water from septic systems into the lagoon, and that's why these septic to sewer programs are so darn important, and why you've seen Brevard County invest in Indian River County so much in cleaning up the Indian River Lagoon. And while I was able to get record funding for the lagoon last year and again this year, I think it's vital. And it's not just the idea of cleaning the lagoon; it's an economic issue. So many of us enjoy the recreation on the waterways, but the other one is that the value of our home is very much contingent on the purification of our water, and that's what we've been attempting to do. And I'm glad to see we're making progress in that regard. As far as property tax is concerned, as you know, Kathy, it's a state issue. I championed back in the day the idea your tax savings. That means when you move, you get to keep your Save Our Homes tax savings. It saved Floridians around $30 billion since I passed that back in 2008. But this is going to be a big debate we have in the state. The governor, I believe, this week is working on that. But what my job is to make sure that we get our fair share. And I'm happy to report that whether it be transportation infrastructure, like I talked about at the port, where we got over $20 million additional, or the $234 million in total that I was able to secure for the district for some of our needs, whether it be roadways, infrastructure. These are elements that make our economy move every single day. And I too will miss Vero Beach and the whole Indian River County. They've been very good to me. And I just think the best way you serve the public is to make sure that you show up and you get involved and hear firsthand like you all have been able to do. And I think it's so vital for growing areas, especially like Fellsmere, to get some of these water projects that have been denied them for years. So we'll continue the fight, and these infrastructure things are vital to keep the economy moving. And as I think because we've been so good about it, that's the reason why people are voting with their feet and moving to Florida.
Thank you, Congressman. We have time for just a couple more questions as we are about 10 minutes until we have to go. Our next question is going to be from Neil in Melbourne. Neil, you are live with the Congressman.
Hey, good afternoon, Congressman. How are you today?
Hey, Neil, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I got a quick question for you. I've been listening to these town halls now for the last few months, and I always kind of wondered why these things aren't done live in person. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like me as a member of the community and one of your constituents, I feel like I'd get a little bit more out of these meetings if they felt a bit more personal. Sometimes it kind of feels like just listening to a radio show.
Yeah, well, Neil, I hear you, brother, and it is frustrating to do it this way. And it was one of the tougher decisions I've made because, as you probably, a lot of people see me out in the community at so many different events, and I love the interaction like we're doing tonight. But there's a few factors that came into play. Let me give you the number factor first. Right now, we probably have over 6,000 people on the call. We've had over 10,000 at some of these calls. This is our sixth one I've done. And they're just orderly. A lot more people can really be a part of the conversation. As you in Brevard County, we'd probably limit any town hall to probably 1,000 people in person anyway because some of the limited venues we have. But beyond that, what really disappointed me is that I've seen some of my other colleagues try to hold a town hall meeting, and it absolutely breaks into chaos, cursing, physical threats, arrests. It's just been the ugliest thing ever. And as you've heard a little bit from the conversation we've had tonight, I like to see myself as a problem solver. I work across the aisle, as many of my Democrat friends here in Washington will tell you, and I believe in that politics should be the art of the possible, getting things done and elevate the conversation. I see some people who are either elected officials or want to be elected officials curse and scream and yell online and reduce the respect that we should have for our fellow citizens in our community. They just want chaos and politics. That's not my personality. I'm a teacher at heart. Hopefully, as this political situation calms down a bit, we can start doing some logical town hall meetings. But what I love about this is, just like you can ask me any question you want, Neil. This is the way I would like to communicate so that people can get real information. And for those who want to keep update with me every day, we put out a weekly newsletter. I'm at many different public events around the community, as people know, but I don't think it elevates our community when you just allow ourselves to denigrate these situations into chaos. So you can go online, and it's just sad when you see the cursing and the physical threats and the arrests that have been made around the country, and seeing some of the comments that I've even seen online on some of our public pages. It just seems like people want to yell and scream as opposed to solve problems. And that's what I'm here for. You can follow me on the social media channels, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And you don't have to say nice things there, but I feel like these tele-town halls are really productive because people ask me the hard questions and sometimes the nice, easy questions. But whether it be gas prices, Iran, healthcare costs, your question about in-person town hall meetings. These are the tough questions you deserve to hear directly from me. and I'll do my best to communicate. And finally, I'll just say this. The other thing I do a ton of is I think we've done over 500 TV interviews since I've been in office. I don't just sit on Fox News. I'm actually a regular on CNN. When sometimes my friends say, "I saw you on CNN," I said, "Hey, why are you watching CNN? What's going on with that?" But look, the press deserves to ask me the tough questions, and I'm always talking with the Florida Today, Space Coast Daily, Vero Beach News Journal. You deserve to know how I feel, and I'm always out there. And I also talk on the floor a lot of Congress, let alone my committee, so you know exactly where I stand. And hopefully the civility in politics will return. We can have a logical debate. But my colleagues in Washington know that I treat them with respect, even when we don't agree on things. And I'm proud to say there are many Democrats I work with on, especially financial services issue. We just passed a bipartisan bill on housing. We passed, of course, a bipartisan bill with NASA because I want to elevate the conversation. Some people want to bring politics and denigrate the conversation and curse and scream, even on their own websites. It's ridiculous. We need people who are serious, who want to solve problems, and I'm going to try to do my best. And Neil, always feel free to contact our office. And most importantly, if you have a constituent need, whether it be a veterans issue, even a passport question, never hesitate to give our office a call. We'd be happy to help. So thanks for your fair question, and I hope I was thorough in the answer.
We have time for one final question. That question is going to come from Bob in Palm Bay. Bob, you are live with the Congressman.
Thank you very much. Hi, Congressman. Keep up the good work. We certainly appreciate you and love you here in Brevard County. I'm a federal retiree as of October 1st last year, and I'm still waiting on OPM to issue my annuity. And I was wondering if you could sort of try and find out on your end in Washington what the delay is with OPM delaying our retirement annuity.
Well, Bob, let me look into that. That doesn't make sense to me either. I think you have our local number. It's 321-632-1776. If you please call our office and get your name and number. And what you need to do on these type of cases specifically is you fill out a casework form. So we're authorized to act on your behalf, and then we go to work for you. First of all, thanks for working for our government for so many years. My dad was a former FBI agent. My mom used to work for the FBI, and as I mentioned, our son's in the Air Force. And so we have a great respect for our federal workers, especially, of course, those at NASA who make our rockets take off so successfully and lead the world. That said, please do that. 632-1776 is a local number, and we'll go to bat for you, and we'll figure out exactly why yours may have been delayed. And to everyone listening, this is exactly what we do for you. Sadly, it takes a call from the congressman sometimes to get through that red tape. I think it's ridiculous we have to do it that way, but I'm willing and able to do that. And in the last, I guess I've been in office for about 18 months now, we have handled over 3,000 cases and returned $18 million back to people who've earned these different benefits, let alone, as I mentioned before, all the money we brought back for the lagoon and record spending for NASA to make sure we win the space race and, of course, for the lagoon. So, Bob, I really appreciate your willingness to reach out to us. And remember, call our office. We will get immediately on that. That's unacceptable. When you go to work, you're promised certain benefits, whether it be for the VA or a federal worker, and we want to make sure that people who've earned those benefits from Social Security, Medicare, you name it, are rewarded for it. So, Bob, it says here from Palm Bay, thanks again for your call, and we really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Congressman. Now is time for our closing remarks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the people who put the calls in today. You gave us some tough questions and some easier ones, and this is what these town hallers are about. This is our 6th town hall. It's something we're absolutely committed to. And again, if you already aren't doing it, please sign up for our newsletter. Please sign up on our social medias. We want to hear your opinion. It's absolutely vital. If you subscribe to our newsletter, press *6. And if you'd like to leave a message, stay on the line, leave that message, and you can even send in your questions to us as well if you want to stay on the line and do that. We're going to probably put this up probably on Facebook, the entire recording. So if you want to listen to it again, if you can't sleep, it's probably a great way to do it. And in all seriousness, I really want to say thanks for everyone on the Space Coast and Treasure Coast for giving me the opportunity to serve the United States Congress. We get the best ideas actually from home, and we're going to try to bring more of Florida up to Washington, D.C. in a common sense way. So I just got the word that we had over 6,000 people on the line tonight. A lot of great questions, and as I'll close with this, I want to say again a prayer and a thanks to the Posey family. And for those who didn't hear in the beginning of the call, there will be a memorial service for him at Holy Trinity Upper School at the corner of Pineda and Wickham on the 13th of June. I believe it's at 10 a.m. God bless everyone. Thank you so much for your time. It means a lot to me, and we'll look forward to our future conversation. And I think when's our next one? I think the next one is in late July or early August. Have a great night. And again, thanks again. Proud to be your Congressman, Mike Haridopolos.